everyone. I did have a PowerPoint presentation, but me and PowerPoint presentations are not good friends. So I decided not to use one today. Like Charlotte said, I own a translation company, and I started a charity foundation, and I'll tell you how I did that. So our theme is fearless, and it's one woman, and my thing is, can one woman change the world? I think we all agree that we can, because you're all here on a Saturday morning. And I'll tell you how I started, I think, to be a little bit fearless and doing my part in trying to make things a little bit better in our world. Exactly about 18 years ago, I was a freelance translator and a freelance interpreter. And I was a single mom at that time. I had bills to pay, mortgage to pay, I had my car loans to pay, and I worked. And sometimes it was hard to get paid in a freelance world. And I decided one day, well, I'm going to start a company, and if I was successful at this company, I would pay all my freelancers on time, on a set day, regardless, so that they can earn a living, because it is a profession, and that is what I did with Language Marketplace. Fast forward 18 years later, I am proud that it is one of the largest translations privately owned in Canada. I continue to pay my translators every month on a set day and regardless, and this is how we grew. Because regardless of what's happening, the translators that work for us on a freelance basis will know that on the 15th of every month they get a paycheck. So part of when I started Language Marketplace, I thought that it's not just a responsibility of running a company or working, that we have to do more for our community, and you have to give back. And right from the beginning, from the first year, I started off with 1/4 of our profits to go to charity. Our first charity was the Kidney Foundation. And believe me, we didn't make a lot of money that first year, but it was a little bit, and we continued that. And the staff is involved. Some of my staff actually sometimes donate their bonuses, which happened this month, and I'll tell you that in a few minutes. But about exactly, it's going to be 6 years ago now, I had one of my in-house French translators, Charles Vallier, was diagnosed with ALS. I did not know what ALS was. And how I found out was that for one day, Charles, in the afternoon, wasn't feeling very well, went to Credit Valley Hospital in Toronto and Mississauga. And he didn't come to work for about 2 days. And it was very unusual because he didn't even call, So anyways, I finally tracked him down at Credit Valley. I went to the emergency department. He was still running tests. And he said he was fine. He would see me the next morning at the office, so I was cool. I went back to work. The next morning, he walks in my office and says, I need to talk to you, but I need to talk to my parents first in Quebec. As soon as I talk to them, I'll come and talk to you. And me, and people that know me sometimes know that I say things just as I feel or that come right to my mind. And I look at Charles in my doorway and I say, "What, are you dying?" And he just looks at me very serious. I can still see this because it still haunts me to this day. And he goes, "Actually, I am." And I go, "What?" And he told me before he told his parents, he sat down and he says, "I have ALS." And again, me being me, at that time I said, "What is ALS?" And he proceeded to explain to me how he was going to die. He died, it's going to be 2 years in September. So he did work for us for another 1.5 years until the disease sent him home. During that 1.5 years, and then proceeding until his death, I I decided that we were going to raise funds for ALS. Now, when I was younger and in high school, I hated gym. I hated running. I used to actually look at people, even as an adult, seeing people run on the road every morning, and I go, what are these people doing? They're crazy. So what did I decide to do? I decided to start running a marathon and prepare for running for ALS to raise funds for ALS. I have now run 2 marathons, 7 half marathons, tons of races. I love running. So my first marathon, thank you. So my first marathon, Charles, it was the year before he passed away, and his wife had brought Charles over to the finish line of the Scotiabank Waterfront Marathon in Toronto. And it was the hardest thing, okay? It's like after 3.5 hours, first I see the turn off for the half marathon. I'm going, why am I not going there? Oh yeah, I have to do all this. So I continued going, and all I kept thinking, run faster. Like Charles is in a wheelchair, and it's freezing. So all that played. I did finish after 4 hours and 40 minutes. Charles was there, and it was the last time, basically, that he was out. A year later, 2 years later, I ran, 2016, I ran my second marathon, which was also a waterfront, Scotiabank Waterfront Marathon, but it was in memory of Charles because he had passed away. Running that marathon, I was thinking, okay, what do I do now? Charles passed away. What am I going to do, raise monies for ALS for? What had happened in 2012, my mother passed away. My mom passed away at the age 66 after 26 years of suffering from mental illness. Now, as we all know, and at least that was my experience, there is a very big stigmatization on mental illness. I had no patience for my mom. I always thought, just get over it. Just go do this, just take medication. But no, it was a 26-year ordeal. I had seen my mom in September 2012. She was in Portugal, Portuguese. And she was in a home, in a long-term care facility after being put there from her last stay at a mental hospital in a psychiatric unit. My mom, at the long-term care facility, was being spoon-fed. She did not know, she couldn't speak. She had to be sat in a chair where she had to be in restraints because when she got up, she fell, and that was for her safety. I spent 3 hours at the long care facility looking at a woman that I no longer recognized, and I spent 90% of that time talking to her caregiver. That was the last day I saw my mom. She passed away. Coincidentally, I was coming in from a run on the 6th of January of 2013. I hear the phone ring when I come in the house from a training run, and I instantly knew that when I picked up that headphone, the headset, that it was going to be the home about my mom. And it was. My mom had passed away with cardiac failure on the way to the hospital. I guess her heart gave up because there was no worth. You get tired. So back to and when I was running the last marathon in 2016, while I was running, I thought, what am I going to do now? And I realized that I needed to go back and mourn my mom. My mom had passed away for 3 years, and I hadn't mourned my mom. And during my run, I thought, well, I better warn my mom, and I guess we should start talking about mental health because it is a big stigma, and I want to end stigma. And this is how Peaks for Change happened. But then, running, everybody runs, I had run a lot, thought we have to do something that you have to have a lot of attention because mental illness is really, it is a really big problem. And it is something that people have to start talking about. And in our age of social media, everybody has to have that big wow factor. So I'm afraid of heights. So what did I decide to do? I decided to go and climb the seven tallest mountains around the world. They're called the 7 summits. So I climbed my first one, and that is how we're raising money for mental health. The biggest hospital in Ontario, and in Canada as well, is CAMH, the Centre of Addiction and Mental Health. And we decided we're going to raise the funds to start off for the hospital, and that is what we're doing. So I climbed my first mountain, and it's one of the most technical ones last October in Indonesia. I was in Bali as well, but it's in Papua New Guinea. I learned how to rock climb. I never had rock climbed in my life. I learned how to rock climb. We did summit in January. We climbed Kilimanjaro, which was supposed to be actually my first mountain, but that was my second. And I actually summited on the university of my mom's death. I didn't realize that I was at the top of the mountain until my daughter, after I said I summited, and that she says, "Of course you did, Grandma was with you. It's her anniversary." So, thank you. So we do have a table outside. So we're fearless. Of course we're fearless. We can do anything we want. I'm afraid of heights, and I'm climbing mountains. You're here sitting today, and everybody has a dream. Everybody has something that you really want to do. Usually I tell people to write something, but because there's so many of you, I invite you to actually grab your phones and write something that you are thinking of doing and send it to yourself. And tomorrow, look at it, and the next day, and keep reminding yourselves that is, if there is a dream that you want to do, just go and do it. We are women. One woman can change the world. One woman can make the difference. And we are fearless. So I do have, if you want to learn more about Peaks for Change, or my company, we do have some information in a booth. It talks about my climbs, when we're climbing, and we're also fundraising for a need for a woman. The hospital, the Centre of Addiction and Mental Health, not every service is covered by our healthcare. So it does cost money. Sometimes women don't have access to even the initial consultation fee, and that is what we're raising money for today. Is for $5, you can help towards one woman going to have a consultation to be admitted to one of the programs at CAMH. So I thank you, and thank you for listening to me.